So the road I'm driving on now, for those of you who might live in a country where you don't see these kind of conditions, is basically around sort of 2 to 3 inches thick with ice, and on top you've just got a really, really light covering of snow. This is a ploughed road, so the advantage being that it's maintained by a plough truck, so you don't get lots and lots of snow on top, which would just aid in losing traction really. But in these kind of conditions where you're looking at around minus 10 degrees C, most tyres are going to perform really well. Even tyres that aren't winter tyres are going to kind of seem like they're doing okay on a road like this if you're in a four-wheel drive with 4 high engaged. And that's really just because when it's this cold, the tyre tends to stick to the road a little bit more, a little bit like Velcro. When you start getting near 0 degrees C, then you're really entering the danger zone if you're not running a good tyre, and you'll start losing control, and that's when you see cars in the ditch pretty much on a daily basis, because they've been going too fast. They might be in a rear wheel drive, they took a corner too quickly, they lost the back end, something went wrong, and now they're in the ditch. So you know, most people obviously know how to drive here, but it does occasionally catch people out, and everybody by law runs a winter tyre most of the time, 99% of the time, with a metal stud, so you have a lot of grip even in those wetter conditions. But even then it's still pretty dodgy to be sort of driving badly. But these conditions today are perfect. The tyre's performing really well. We're in 4 high, and we've got 25 psi on the back, 25 psi on the front. You know, we're not slowing down for corners. You know, there's a light coverage of snow, which sometimes can aid in loss of traction, especially if it's too thick, you know, and the ice is a little bit wet underneath. But these conditions are really, really good. So I've just entered a forest track, and I deliberately haven't aired down, just to see what the tyre feels like. And yeah, naturally it's pretty horrible. You know, I'm losing control of the vehicle. It's wanting to drift everywhere. I'm sort of fighting with the steering, and you know, it's not a great experience really. I don't know, for those of you who haven't driven on snow, airing down really does help. I mean, you've got 2 choices really. If the snow's really deep, there's no point cutting through it, because then you belly up the vehicle and you're stuck and you've got to dig yourself out, and then you're never going to get through the track. But if the snow's not so deep, it's better off to have a very narrow tyre, so you're cutting through the snow, you know, like a pizza cutter, and then you'll find the performance will be much, much better, like a tall, narrow tyre. I've got a tall tyre, but it's also a little bit on the wide side of 35, 12, 50, not really wide, but fairly wide. And this snow is, I don't know, say it's 30 centimetres high. You know, we're on 25 psi, and the performance is relatively poor like this. You know, you can't go very fast. I'll lose control of the vehicle, I'll just end up in the tree line, having to winch myself back on the track again like I had to do the other day. One thing that makes this track worse is someone's already driven it. We had some warm conditions and some snow, and there's obviously like a high point of compacted snow. It's much easier to push through virgin snow than it is to drive somebody else's tracks really a lot of the time, depending on certain circumstances, but like this it is. But we're almost out of this track now, and I'm really just driving this on 25 psi just to kind of show what the tyres are doing. But yeah, we're back on the road, and there we go. someone's already driven the track from a long time ago, and some people have already tried and got stuck by the looks of it. I'm going to wear this down to around 5 psi, just going to do it by eye as usual. That looks good. If you have bead locks, you can obviously go a lot lower and not worry about it, but there shouldn't be anything to bounce it off the bead, and I do have a spare, but fingers crossed that doesn't happen. Right, see how that does. I'm in 4 low second, and that seems to be perfect really for my setup. I mean, I've got a 35-inch tyre, 411 gears, not ideal actually, that combination. Better on 488 for example, which I will go to in the future, but then I'll probably put a rear locker in, an aux locker in the Chrysler 8.25 at the back, just because, you know, why wouldn't you, while you've got all that time taking the diffs apart. So you know, for me this setup is okay for the time being. I mean, lockers would make it a little bit more unstoppable in this kind of condition, and even if the snow is a lot higher, you'd probably find that with lockers, chains, you know, smashing through this, you would really do well. I mean, when I put the chains on the back on this, I notice a massive performance increase in this kind of conditions. I think when I put the chains on the front, I notice a decrease in performance because I find the front end starts to dig. But when I put the chains on the back, the front end lifts and the back tends to kind of surf the vehicle along, and it just seems to work really well. I mean, I'm sure it's not like that on all vehicles. Maybe on Cherokees, when they're set up a certain way, it works quite well for them, but clearly chains front and back would be superior, and lockers. But yeah, we're doing pretty well. Well, that was good fun. Although this snow is, it's not really deep, to be fair. You know, this is kind of what you'd expect most SUVs to be able to do on a fairly decent tyre. I mean, yeah, okay, you know, you get a standard SUV like a Navara with normal tyres and stuff, like maybe it's going to be pushing the snow a bit and it will get stuck. But you know, when you're sort of talking about a vehicle like this, you would expect it to do this kind of thing. But the snow is very wet. It is compacting, even though it's about -7 degrees C. The conditions are pretty good actually. It is powdery, but it's still quite wet. I mean, later on, when the temperatures really drop, this will probably become a bit more icy and actually a little bit more challenging too. And then that's when you find like chucking a chain on kind of helps you smash through that and keep the momentum going. But I really wanted to just show you the tyres and kind of how they're performing and what I think of them. I think compared to the BFG KM3 mud terrain that I tried out last winter in snow like this, these tyres are performing a lot better. They have a true 10-ply sidewall, and I'm not sure whether the BFG KM3 does. I'll correct myself if it does. I think it's 7-ply, but they air down really nicely. It's a little bit of a heavier tyre than the KM3, but yeah, it's a good tread pattern, and with the studs and the way it's running aired down, it's just kicking through this snow like I've never had traction like this really. Last year on the 32-inch tyres, like I said, I couldn't really drive this. I'd be stuck literally at the gates, you know, not able to get through these tracks and stuff. So Meg's pretty excited. She came with me the other day and she gets proper nervous when she comes, I sort of call it off-roading. It isn't really, this is a road. When we go on the forest tracks in the snow, because things can go wrong, especially when you start getting off camber and it's wet, and you're really running the danger zone because you can slide and then the vehicle can roll, and you've got to be careful, you know, and pick your days and things like that really. But she's loving it now. She came out with me the other day. We did a lot of driving. She did a bit, and we got stuck. We had to use the winch. We had our little boy with us, and yeah, it was a really good day out. And she was like, I can't believe the Jeep can actually do this, because the snow on that day when we were driving, we were a bit higher up. It was up to the bumper, so you know the drag on the vehicle was so much more. We were really pushing. I couldn't do third 4 low. I had to do second 4 low, maintain around 2000 RPM and just punch through and just keep on going. And we even chucked the chains on eventually on the way back when it hardened up in the evening. And that was like a different kettle of fish then. You could smash through virgin snow and just keep ploughing through it, even if it was bumper high. But we'll go check out some tracks like that, obviously. But I'm going to cook up some lunch because I'm flipping starving. It's going to be creamy asparagus soup. That's what we're going to have. Keep it light on the stomach, and then maybe a hot chocolate. A little bit of soup. On a day like this, you need it. It's cold. Not as cold as it was the other day. It's like -20 something, and that is too cold to be playing around in the forest sometimes, especially when you've got the kids or the baby in the back. You can't really go out, get stuck, you know. That was the whole reason to have the diesel heater, to be able to be plumbed into the vehicle. I don't want the diesel heater permanently installed in the Jeep. I want it kind of modular, so it goes on the top of the tyre carrier, like I said, and it can warm the garage, do the car, do the awning room. You can take it off, you can lend it to someone, you know, that kind of thing. Because if it's permanently attached to the vehicle, it suddenly becomes more limiting. With this kind of vehicle anyway, what I've got, if it was a van or a bigger vehicle, I'd say yeah, definitely permanently fit it, because you can live in the vehicle. But in my case, I can't really.
Oh, Jimmy. Tastes good, Jimmy.
Well, it's the following day and I thought I'd come back to the same tracks and thought it'd be a fair test, you know, to drive the same roads again. We've had a huge dump of snow over the last 2 days and a lot of winds creating some pretty gnarly drift. I was driving down here and I got my camera gear in one hand, just getting ready. I took my eye off the road for a second and I'm in the ditch, so good job I've got the winch. I'm going to winch over to those trees there, see if I can get myself back on the track, and yeah, we'll see how it goes. But you know, just a stupid mistake really, but fortunately some locals stopped just to see whether I was okay, and I said, yeah, don't worry, I'm filming and everything, and they probably thought I was pretty crazy and they've driven on. But yeah, we'll get the winch ready and we'll see how it goes. Alright, see if we can get out. the winch line's clearly a mess. What I'll do is I'll leave it like that while we drive the rest of the day. When I get home, I'll undo the winch. This goes around a tree to a tree protector, and I pull the whole vehicle towards the winch, obviously, retension the line, get it all nice again. But we're probably going to use it again today, so I'm just going to leave it like that, obviously. We're dealing with quite a lot more snow today. We've had about another 30 centimetres, so now we're talking a not knee-high snow now, which makes it much harder for me to film these videos. Need a cameraman or a camera woman or a drone that can work in -20, which I don't think is going to happen. But let's see how these tyres do. I've got to say, I'm really impressed with the way the tyres are performing. I mean, this is some pretty deep snow, and when I walk in the snow I sink up to my knee, but when I'm in the Jeep and I'm standing next to the tyre, I'm much higher. They're floating really well, and we're down to about 5 psi again. We've just got to be very careful that we don't end up in a ditch, because you know, you start going too quick and all of that sort of stuff, and you do lose control really, and I am fighting a little bit here and there, but that's probably because we drove this the other day, and prior to that it had already been driven, so that's really going to aid in us being able to float a little bit more in this track, but it's also going to make it harder for us to kind of create our own line, because we're going up and down on these bumps all the time, like you can kind of see in front of me here. So we're going up and up, and the snow's getting a little bit deeper here, and obviously we're on an incline, so the vehicle's starting to really have to work. It's moving, it's just moving real slow. Maybe if I chuck the chains on the back I wouldn't have such a hard time, but then kind of defeats the point of testing the tyre. So yeah, we're just gonna have to keep kind of reversing back, see how far we get, reverse back, see how far we get, and that is kind of what starts to happen when you're in deep snow. And do remember, I don't have lockers front or back. I've got like an LSD in the rear of the vehicle, but on a 35-inch 1250 that's probably not doing a whole lot. So with lockers I think this will probably be a hell of a lot easier, but let's see how we go. the hill has eased off a bit and we've started moving again, which is really nice, because that really steep bit there was just me reversing and hammering it. But now we've flattened out a bit, we can actually start to get some momentum and keep moving at a speed that isn't at a snail's pace. And interestingly enough, looking at the tyres, I'm no idiot. I know this video's, you know, not just me playing around with my tyres and seeing what they can do, but it's also you know, a test really of the vehicle, and there's always going to be a weak link in the chain, and in my case, you know, it's open differentials, obviously. Funnily enough, when you look at the back, you can see both tyres spinning pretty happily, and I don't know whether the LSD is doing something or not, but if you take a look at the front, it's really the front that the open diff at the front that really seems to be kind of letting up. And yeah, I mean, perhaps if I put a locker in the front, I'd notice a massive difference. I'm sure lockers one in the front or one in the back would make an enormous difference. But we're cutting through some pretty good snow, and I've got to be honest, I'm overall, for an open differential vehicle going through knee-high snow that's pretty heavily compacted due to the wind, I'm pretty happy with it, got to say. Well, a little bit more snow today, much colder today. I think it's about -17 now, and tomorrow it's going to be -23 degrees C. So I won't be going out tomorrow and playing out in the wilderness, because you know, when you come out like this and you start going up these remote tracks, it's very hard to find someone who's going to come and get you. You know, if you're going to pay for a recovery service, paying thousands and thousands of pounds effectively, or tens of thousands of krona to get someone to come get you, and it's going to take ages too. You know, things don't happen that fast round here like they used to in the UK. I used to think waiting 20 minutes was a long time for a recovery service. You know, some people have to wait all day around here, or even longer. But I'm going to get myself home now. Obviously I've cut a path all the way back down this track onto the road, back down the other track and onto the main road, where I'll make my way home. So I shouldn't have too many troubles getting out of here, provided I can stay on my own track and I don't end up in the ditch again. But I hope you enjoyed this video. It's really just me going out and playing in the snow and just testing out the tyres, just seeing whether I could do this, because last year, as I say, on the 32 KM2s, all-terrains, I'm sure ground clearance was an issue because the 35 is a lot taller, but at the same time the tread is different, the footprint's different. Being able to air it down and get a bigger footprint is completely different, so the performance of the tyre is probably a lot different too. And this does have I believe it has a much thicker sidewall as well, so it remains in kind of a better profile as well when it's aired down. That's my guess anyway. I mean, I'm no tyre expert, but you know, I mean, I can't afford that many tyres to test. So this is my fourth set of tyres for the XJ now, and these are going to do me for the winters from now on. So thanks for watching, guys. Any questions, any requests, put them in the comments section, and I'll see you again real soon. Take care.